What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about 20 players that I'm betting my entire fantasy hockey season on. I've drafted over 200 fantasy hockey teams, and some of these players are the guys that I've drafted the most. So let's start off with Luke Hughes of the New Jersey Devils. Luke is one of my most drafted defensemen in best ball this season, and the main reason for this is the upside that he could provide. Luke just signed a big contract with the Devils, and we know how offensively gifted he is. If he ends up on power play 1 for the entire season and has a bigger role on this team, there's a chance he could put up 65 to 70 points. I understand the concerns with Dougie, but I do think they are going to look into transitioning Luke to being that power play 1 quarterback. And look at this quote from his brother Jack. Jack literally has said to the media that he hopes Luke is power play 1 day 1. Not sure how Dougie feels about that, but I did like that quote quite a bit. He's not the coach, I get it, but I just feel at this stages of their career, Luke is much more dynamic, a much better skater, and he is the future power play 1 quarterback on this team. So I think it's going to happen sooner than later. And if it happens, he is going to be pretty good value where he's going in a lot of drafts. Hopefully my aggressive targeting of Luke Hughes pays off. But another player that I drafted quite a bit this year is Roope Hintz. He is my 3rd most drafted forward this season. 25% of my drafts have him. And the case for Roope Hintz is very simple. There's a chance he's playing on a line with Mikhail Sergachev, perhaps the most talented line mate of his career. We also know that there's way less depth on the Stars team. Grayland's gone, Marchman's gone, Jamie Benn is injured as well. So these guys are going to be getting more minutes. Last season, he got less than 17 minutes of ice time per game. There's a chance with less depth and under new head coach Glenn Glutzen, who's talking about putting Mikko Rantanen on both power play units, that he is going to give these guys a lot of ice time. And that means we're likely going to see a bump in Roope Hintz production. We have to remember that Roope Hintz was on pace for like 70 points last year, despite the limited minutes, despite the Stars power play sucking for the first half of the season. So we see this power play get going and we see more minutes. I'm very excited to watch Roope Hintz this year. Another player I'm betting my fantasy season on is Jake Sanderson of the Ottawa Senators. The case for Sanderson is very simple. He is 23 years old, coming off a 57-point season. He has all the talent in the world, and there is a potential case for better even strength protection. Last year, the Sens weren't very good 5v5. That could be a Travis Green problem, their head coach, but I do think that a lot of players got unlucky. And if we see Sanderson getting the minutes that he's getting bounce back in the even strength department, there's a chance he could put up 70 points. I'm not saying that's going to happen this season, but I do think 65 points is possible. And this is a player that puts up elite shots and blocks too, so he has an extremely safe floor. In the second half of the season, he started shooting the puck like crazy. He was on pace for like 220 shots during that stretch. We will see if he keeps that up, but I think where he's going in a lot of drafts, he was good value. So hopefully he pays off at his ADP. Next up, we got to talk about Nikolaj Ehlers, one of my favorite targets this season. And let me tell you why Ehlers could have a career year. Ehlers is now in the Carolina Hurricanes, arguably on the best even strength line of his career, playing with Sebastian Aho, a fantastic player, playing with Seth Jarvis, that's a line they're running in camp. And he's also going to be on this power play that I think is absolutely stacked. A big thing I look at in fantasy is production despite limited minutes and also even strength production. And if you're looking at Ehlers' whole career, he has been a points per 60 machine. Last year, he was almost a point per game, 63 points in 69 games. The year prior, he wasn't even on power play 1, and he still put up 61 points in 82 games, 7 of these points coming from the man advantage. So if you imagine him on power play 1 that year, he would have been a point per game player. We've seen this all throughout his career. He's been close to a point per game. Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and he's had issues with staying on power play 1. Now listen, I understand he's on Carolina. He's not going to get 18 or 19 minutes of ice time per game, but I do think we're going to see an increase. Could get 17 minutes. And listen, he hasn't played top line for a very long time, guys. He was not playing with Mark Scheifele. He was playing on a line with Nemestikov and Cole Perfetti last year. This is the best situation that Ehlers has been in his entire career. So as long as he stays healthy, I think he could absolutely put up 75 plus points. Another player I'm a massive fan of, my most drafted defenseman on Underdog currently, is Jackson Lacombe of the Anaheim Ducks. A lot of people don't know about this guy, but people are starting to recognize his talent. He just signed the biggest contract in Ducks history. And the reason why he did sign that contract and why he was given that money is because he has an extremely high ceiling. Lacombe basically came out of nowhere last year, putting up 14 goals and 43 points in 75 games. And if you watch him play, he is very impressive. He's very confident with the puck. He can skate really well. He has a great shot. And he's also an extremely good shutdown defenseman. He has solidified himself as a top pairing defenseman on the Ducks. I think he's going to get like 24 or 25 minutes a night. Last year, he only averaged like 22. And for half of the year, he was getting like 19 or 20. So a full season with him getting these minutes on the power play 1, even though it might be a 1A, 1B, with a new head coach, with some really good young players, with new additions to the team. I could go on, guys. He is one of my favorite players to draft, especially if your league values peripherals too, because he has shot sets and blocks. So yeah, we'll see if I'm wrong, but I think Lacombe is going to surprise a lot of people this season. Another player I'm betting my fantasy season on is Morgan Rielly of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, yes, Rielly has been inconsistent. A lot of Leafs fans are upset that he is poised to quarterback this power play 1. But looking at his production over the last couple of years, I still think he has a lot of potential. I'm not saying I'm the biggest believer of Rielly's game, but a lot of this was ADP related. He was going super late in my redraft league, so I was targeting him very late in my best ball draft. So I just saw the upside and I took advantage. Now listen, say what you want about him, but if he is quarterbacking power play 1 for the entire season with Austin Matthews and William Nylander, he's going to perform better than where he was drafted. We also heard a lot of good things about his offseason training. Coach Berube said some really good things about how Rielly took his lack of offense last year very seriously and put in a lot of work. He was focused too much on the defensive side of things last year, so I think we might see a return to form for Rielly, and there's a chance he could put up like 55 to 60 points with decent shot hits and blocks. Maybe I'll get burned by him, but where he was going in a lot of drafts, I don't think there was much risk, and hopefully it pays off. Another player I am betting my entire fantasy season on is Valeri Nichushkin of the Colorado Avalanche. Now listen, I understand Nichushkin has not been able to stay healthy. He's had off-ice issues. And we did see in camp recently, they put Lehkonen on that top line with McKinnon over Nichushkin, and also on power play 1 as well. I'm not too concerned about this though, because I understand they wanted to try out Lehkonen on there. They're just experimenting with things. Personally, I think Nichushkin is the better net front player. If you're looking at his power play goals over the last couple of years, I feel like the stats speak for themselves. So I do think Nichushkin will be on this power play, but I just need him to stay healthy. I feel like that's pretty much it. If you're looking at his stats and he played a full season for some of these years, he would be like a 35 goal, 75 point player with really good shot hits and blocks. So I just think at his price on a lot of platforms, the upside is immense, and I bet on upside, guys. I want to win my fantasy hockey championships. I want to win these grand prizes on these best ball platforms, and Nichushkin could be a league winner. The next player that I love, that I've been drafting quite a bit, is Mikhail Sergachev of the Utah Mammoth. This one is pretty simple as well. The disrespect Sergachev was getting on a lot of platforms, it was kind of a head scratcher to me. Like Yahoo, he was going super late despite being a very safe pick, a guy that can put up good peripherals, a guy that can score 10 goals and put up 60 points, a guy that's quarterbacking a top 10 power play in the NHL, a top pairing defenseman on a rising team. So yeah, I just been drafting Sergachev quite a bit. He's one of my most drafted players on Underdog and drafters and redraft. He's one of my most drafted players as well. If your league values peripherals, it's a cherry on top. But even if they don't, he is one of those guys that could put up 60 points and 10 plus goals. So it's sort of a no-brainer, and I think this one's going to pay off. Next up, we got to talk about my second most drafted forward this year, Kevin Fiala of the Los Angeles Kings. Now listen, I understand there's concerns with the Kings offense under Jim Hiller. They've been a very defensive-minded team, but I am not too concerned about this because I know how talented Kevin Fiala is. We have to remember that Fiala had 85 points in 82 games with the Minnesota Wild, with only 17 points coming for the man advantage that season. That's the type of talent that he has. And listen, 3 years ago, Fiala was an over point per game player on this Kings team. Obviously, last year was not ideal. Yes, he scored a lot of goals, but only put up 60 points. But I do think there's a lot of reasons why he could bounce back. The first thing is that this Kings power play was struggling last year, and I do think that their 5-forward unit is going to be more promising. It looked much better with Kuzmenko on it. Another reason is Quinton Byfield. I think he is about to have a big breakout, and I think he's shown a lot of improvements. And Fiala plays on a line with Quinton Byfield and Alex Laferriere. The last thing I'll mention here is that last season, Fiala averaged the highest ice time of his career at 18 minutes and 30 seconds. This is very promising to me, guys. He's put up better numbers with less ice time, so I think we're going to see a bounce back, and I think he's going to be close to a point per game. Another player that I've drafted a ton of this year, who I'm a big fan of, is Sebastian Aho of the Carolina Hurricanes. This one is very simple to me. You add Nikolaj Ehlers, who is an offensive, dynamic player. Seth Jarvis is just getting better and better, and also this power play wasn't very good last season, and I think it's going to improve. We've seen Aho be an over point per game player for many years, and I think he's going to get back to that. I understand on certain platforms he was a pure C like Yahoo, Aho, so he wasn't my screaming favorite target in redraft leagues, but in best ball, I was drafting him all day long, and I think it's going to pay off. Another player I'm betting my entire fantasy season on is Adam Fox of the New York Rangers. It's pretty simple, guys. Fox is one of the best defensemen in the NHL. Last year was a down year, but I think he's going to bounce back, and I think he was really good value on a lot of platforms. The Rangers had the 5th worst power play in the NHL last year, something that was very unexpected. That's not going to happen again with the level of talent they have on this top unit. So we're going to see these power play points go up. They also added Gavrikov to the team, which is going to open up Adam Fox's offensive game. He's not going to have to be relied on so heavily for the defensive end of things. And I think he's going to get back to being a 70 to 75 point player with maybe even room for more. Obviously, his peripherals aren't great, so it depends on your league format, but I think where he was going in a lot of drafts, I'm a big fan of, and I think he's going to pay off. Next up, one of my favorite players who I think has immense upside is Kirill Marchenko of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I've drafted quite a bit of Kirill Marchenko this season, going super late on a lot of platforms, especially Yahoo. Even on drafters, he was going late early on, and I was smashing that draft button. But let me tell you why I think Marchenko has crazy upside. The fact is that Marchenko has only gotten better in every single season of the NHL. He is only 25 years old, so there is room for growth as well in terms of that age range. And he's surrounded by a ton of young players and really good players as well. I understand there's some concern with regression for the Blue Jackets, and yes, that could affect Marchenko, but if you watch this guy play, you know he's a real deal. I think the biggest thing for me is if we see this power play improve. Last year, he had 74 points in 79 games with only 19 coming from the man advantage, and also he had 31 goals with only 2 of these goals coming from that power play. He was one of the best even strength goal scorers, and we saw in the previous 2 years, he was great on the power play. He had 7 power play goals in 59 games his rookie year, 9 power play goals in 78 games the next season, and I do think if we see him bounce back on this power play, he has the chance to score 40 goals. Next up, let's talk about hands down my most drafted forward this year, Mika Zibanejad of the New York Rangers. The case for Zibanejad is very simple. I know I've talked about him so much. I feel like I'm repeating the same things over and over again with this guy. It's like a script in my head at this point, but his ADP was so late on so many platforms that the upside was just too crazy to ignore. The Rangers had a bottom 5 power play last year. That's not going to happen again. He was centering a line with Chris Kreider, who had the worst season in a very long time, Riley Smith, who was terrible for the Rags. And then now you add JT Miller, an elite center, moving Zibanejad to the wing, so less defensive responsibilities, a better offensive player on his line in Miller. You have Will Koule, who's a beast, who's going to complement those guys very well. And in general, this is a guy who has been elite in the last 6 or 7 years, especially on this power play, one of the best power play goal scorers in the NHL. I could go on, guys. I just think the upside is immense from his ADP. I think he could go back to being a 30 to 35 goal scorer and a point per game player. And where he was going, like 120, 130 ADP on some platforms, it had to be my favorite target in fantasy hockey this year. Maybe I'll be wrong and Zibanejad will prove the haters right, but if he performs like I think he's going to perform, he's going to be one of the best draft picks this season considering his price. Next up, let's talk about one of my favorite players in the NHL, Dylan Guenther of the Utah Mammoth. He was my #1 sleeper last year, and it did pay off, going super late. The case made so much sense, not just from his stats, but also just watching him play. And let's talk about why this year he could be a league winner. I think Guenther is a future 50 goal scorer. His #1 thing that he has going for him, his bread and butter, is a shot. He has one of the best releases in the NHL, and I think this season he could push for 40 goals. We have to remember that Guenther is only 22 years old, surrounded by some really good young players like Logan Cooley. Added JJ Peterka as well, which is going to help him even strength. They have a superstar in Keller on this team, and he's going to be on one of the best power plays in the NHL. And now, even though there's a chance he doesn't play with Keller even strength, I still think a line of Cooley, Peterka, and Guenther is elite. The even strength protection is going to improve from last year, and he is a lock for 10 plus power play goals and probably 30 power play points. I also think he's going to see more ice time this season. He only averaged 17 minutes on the dot. I think the coach loves him based on the comments that I've read, and I think he's going to get more responsibility this year. So more ice time usually equals more production. I think down the stretch, similar to last season, Guenther is going to have a lot of multi-point games. He is going to be a league winner. He's going to be a keeper in some of your keeper leagues. So I'm just so excited to watch this guy play. He is a superstar in the making. Another player that I've drafted a lot lot of this year that I think has insane upside is Martin Necas of the Colorado Avalanche. I made the bold claim last year when Necas got traded for Rantanen that Necas was going to be better for the rest of the regular season, and we saw that happen. The fact is that he's going from this Carolina Hurricanes team where in the last couple of years his center was Jesperi Kotkaniemi or Paul Stastny or Jack Drury, and now he's on the Colorado Avalanche, getting 21 minutes a night, like 4 minutes more than he got on Carolina, playing on a line with one of the best players in the world in Nathan MacKinnon. We also know that he's going to be playing on a top 5 power play with MacKinnon and Makar. So I just think the upside is insane with this guy. I think he can put up 90 plus points. He's also in a contract year, so maybe a little bit motivated by having a big season. So this is a guy that I think has crazy upside from where he was going. His Yahoo ADP is like 50. I've drafted a ton of him on best ball as well, even though his best ball ADP was higher. I think he can perform like a top 15 forward, similar to a lot of players that were going in the second round that I wasn't the biggest fan of. So very excited to see what he can do this year. And I think a lot of people are going to be very happy that they drafted him. Another one of my most drafted players this season was Evan Bouchard of the Edmonton Oilers. The case for Bouchard is very simple. Last year was sort of disappointing, only 67 points in 82 games. The year prior, he was an over point per game player. And I just think in this offense, on a power play that should bounce back, there's a chance he goes back to being a 20 goal point per game guy. Another big thing for me with Bouchard is just positional scarcity and ADP value. I don't love the forwards in the second round, so I love pairing a first round forward with Bouchard in the second round and then getting an elite forward in the third round like Clayton Keller, Jason Robertson, Matt Boldy, and others. I just think he's one of those defensemen that is going to win you fantasy hockey weeks. He's a guy that can put up 250 shots, which gives him an insanely safe floor, and I think he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. Another one of my most drafted players this year, a guy that is right on the precipice of a massive breakout, is Matt Boldy of the Minnesota Wild. If you've watched Boldy play, you know this guy's a real deal. I've watched him in preseason this season as well, and it looks like he's taken another step. He's 24 years old. He's a guy that puts up elite shot volume, 271 shots last year, so extremely safe floor in fantasy. And right now in camp, he is playing line one with Kaprizov. We have to remember that last season, Boldy didn't play a lot with Kaprizov even strength. So if this sticks, there is insane upside. It seems like they're more comfortable with stacking this top line because they have these young players like Urov and Ogren, and also adding Tarasenko. So there's a good chance he's playing with Kaprizov for the majority of the year. And also, I think this power play is going to bounce back in a big way. This power play was not nearly as good as it should have been last year. Obviously, Kaprizov missing most of the year really hurt. But if you also look at the shooting percentages, it seems like they got a tad bit unlucky. We also know that Zeev Buium is an upgrade on this power play as well over Brock Faber, Jared Spurgeon, and others. So I think we're going to see an increase to Boldy's power play production. And we saw last year that he only had 21 power play points. I think there's a chance he can get up to 30 or 35 points from this man advantage. To sum everything up, this guy is 24 years old, the age that we tend to see massive breakouts for NHL players, playing on an even strength line with elite talent to Kaprizov, on a power play that should bounce back, elite shot volume, 40 goal potential, and 90 point potential as well, going at a pretty reasonable ADP with upside. So that's why I drafted a lot of them, and that's why I am a massive fan. Another one of my most drafted players, top 5 in terms of my exposure on best ball drafts, is Jason Robertson of the Dallas Stars. Robo's been one of my favorite targets, and a big reason for this is his price. He was going at like a 35 to 40 ADP range, 20 to 30 picks higher than Mikko Rantanen. And even though I've warmed up to Mikko Rantanen a bit with this Jamie Benn injury and some of the coach's comments, I still think Robo is better value. We are not that far removed from him putting up 109 points in a year. I understand some of that was unsustainable, but this is a guy that is still only 26 years old, playing in an incredible offense, a power play that I think is going to be top 5 and bounce back from last year, and also a guy that might see more ice time under a new head coach. Last year, he had 80 points in 82 games, and he only averaged 17 minutes and 48 seconds of ice time per game. A guy like Nathan MacKinnon gets 21 to 22 minutes, so there's a chance with less depth on the Stars team and a new head coach, he could push 20 minutes, and that is certainly going to help his production. We also have to remember that last year, he had a foot injury that made him miss the entire training camp. He was really lost in the first half. He didn't get up to speed. This power play was terrible. But in the second half, we saw him get back to form. We saw him be one of the best players in the NHL. This power play started to bounce back. And I think that was a taste of things to come. I think there's a chance Robertson goes back to being a 40-goal, 90-point player. I'm a big believer in him. Contract year as well, something to consider. And I just think there is so much upside from his ADP. And that's why he was one of my favorite targets this year. We got two more players here, one of them being Clayton Keller, who was one of my most drafted players this season. The reason I drafted so much of Keller this year is because, one, I believe in his skill and his talent. He has impressed me every single season. Last year, he put up 90 points in 81 games. And I think with some of these young players like Logan Cooley and Dylan Guenther taking a next step, Keller could reach another atmosphere. Now listen, I don't love what we've seen in camp in terms of him playing with Hayden and Schmaltz, but I do think things are fluid and they're going to change it up. I'm sure they're going to stack that line with Guenther, Cooley, and Keller on some nights. And I think this Utah team is going to be similar to what we saw with Tampa a number of years ago. We have to remember that in 22-23 on this Arizona Coyotes team, mainly playing with Barrett Hayden and Nick Schmaltz, for half of the year having Travis Boyd as a center, he still put up 86 points in 82 games. This was also mainly even strength protection as well. He only had 20 power play points this season. Last year, he had 37. So imagine if we see him on a top line with Logan Cooley and Dylan Guenther, or even JJ Peterka on his line too, because he's really good. I just think you're going to see a big even strength bump this year, and the power play is going to continue to be incredible. So where he's going ADP wise, like 35 to 40, there's so much upside for him to perform like a top 15 player. And I think he is going to be a league winner. The last player on this list, I know I'm going to catch flack for this, is Jack Hughes of the New Jersey Devils. I understand there's a risk baked in with Jack Hughes. He is like 170 pounds. He keeps getting injured with his shoulder, 2 shoulder surgeries in back-to-back years, but I don't care because where he was going in redraft leagues is disrespectful. His ADP on Yahoo is like 17. It makes absolutely no sense for a player that could put up 100 plus points on one of the best power plays in the NHL and surrounded by some of the best offensive players in the NHL as well. And listen, I get it. The injury risk is real, but people were drafting in fear, and I simply refuse to. If Jack Hughes plays the entire season, this is a guy that can put up 100 plus points and maybe even room for more. This is a guy that can put up 40 plus goals. This is a guy that can put up 300 plus shots. If this happens, he is going to be one of the best picks in fantasy, and I am not missing out on that value. If Jack Hughes gets injured again, he is on the do not draft list forever, but I think he is going to prove people wrong this year. I think people are going to be very happy that they got him as a steal, and I look forward to seeing what he could do this season. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.